Zhao told Brick to find out more about their forces, but the undead Black Mage said, "Master, that's not going to be easy. The other party has a large number of assassins, and since I don't look like I'm alive, I fear that I won't be able to sneak into the camp." Zhao nodded. "Well, just make sure to tell me the place where they settle down tomorrow." Brick obeyed, and suddenly there was an absence of sound. Zhao immediately went into the villa and cried out, "Grandma Marin, Grandma Marin." Marin was resting, but when Zhao called, she quickly rushed towards him. "Master, what is it?" Meg also came out of her room when she heard the sound. Her meditation was interrupted by Zhao's shouting. Meg was trying to accelerate the speed in which her strength increased, so she would have more power to protect Zhao. When Zhao saw Marin, he greeted her and said, "Grandma Marin, I just received a message from one of the Black Mages. There's an army coming towards Stony Mountain. 3 mages, one of which is a light mage, 3 advanced level warriors, 300 mid-level warriors, and 100 assassins are going to attack the estate tomorrow night." Marin's face had a shocked expression. Her eyes flashed. "Can you find out who they are?" Marin, of course, had often followed Adam's father into the battlefield. Even if she had a good temper, if someone wanted to mess with them, she would not stand for it. It would not do any good to offend an 8th level mage. Zhao shook his head. "No, because there are assassins. Brick can't move too close. Since he's an undead, it would be impossible to mix in with their group. But even though it's difficult to find out who these forces are, I told him to pay attention to their movements. I want to know where they will settle down so we can ambush them tomorrow." Marin paused for a moment, thinking over what Zhao said, then she nodded. "That's a good idea. But now our strength is too weak. I think you should call back Drunk and the other Black Mages from their job. We'll need all the help we can get by tomorrow." Zhao agreed, then he thought of something and his face changed. "Grandma Marin, what about Grandpa Green? Won't they have sent people to deal with him? He doesn't know what's happening right now." Marin smiled. "Master doesn't need to worry. There's a reason that old man has survived for so long. Rest assured, he will come back." Once he felt better, Zhao said, "Well, I'll go call the Black Mages back and bring the slaves into the space. Tell them to come back immediately." "We need to prepare," Marin said. Zhao nodded. "I will gather everyone. Grandma Marin, you go meditate." Marin turned to go back to her room, where she prepared herself properly so that she would be in her best condition for battle. Zhao sent Drunk a message. As for the slaves, he didn't immediately bring them into the space, choosing to wait until the next day since he didn't wish to disturb their night's rest. Staying in the castle was safe enough for now. The next morning came. Zhao got Blockhead and Rockhead to organize the slaves and bring them into the space. At noon, Zhao received some news. Brick had told him that the enemy had set camp in a canyon south of Stony Mountain. Upon receipt of this message, Zhao told Brick to sneak back to the manor. After all, the enemy could have people watching over Stony Mountain. Assassins weren't weak, though what they learned was completely different than an average warrior would be taught. As well as martial arts that made their body light and one-hit kill techniques, they were also good at hiding their presence. Being adept at hiding one's presence meant studying the properties of darkness. Ever since Brick became an undead, his entire body had become one with darkness. It could be said that he could hide himself just as well as a trained assassin. He didn't even need to breathe. Once Brick was within range of the man, a hole appeared, allowing Brick to enter the space. He saluted when he saw Zhao. Zhao waved back and said, while avoiding people, how long do you think it'll take to get back to the canyon? Before dark, Brick said at once. Zhao nodded, then handed his ghost staff to Brick. Take this staff and head on over to the canyon. Don't do anything after that. Brick obeyed. He held the ghost staff, which became 1/2 meter long, then left the space. Once he was outside, he immediately started rushing towards the canyon. The ghost staff was one of the benefits of the level up. It was bound to Zhao and was impossible for others to use it. However, it didn't mean that Brick couldn't hold it while running around. Marin had been standing beside Zhao, and although she didn't understand why Zhao gave the staff to Brick, she didn't ask. She believed that Zhao knew what he was doing. Zhao went into the villa and turned on the screen in the living room. They were now able to see outside, but the image on the screen constantly kept changing. With what Marin knew about the laws of the space, the screen could only show an image within a 500-meter range from a center point. Because of this, the image on the screen generally doesn't move around that much. But now the image looked like it was in a hurry, proving that the center point of the space was mobile. Brick was moving fast, which they could clearly see on the screen. But he wasn't running in a straight line, and instead was moving around in a strange pattern. The route he chose would usually stop in places that were hard to see, like hidden areas with shadows that could cover his body. However, despite this, his speed was certainly not slow. As Brick moved around the mountains, the image on the screen shook a lot, making Zhao feel dizzy looking at it. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, but he wasn't looking at the screen. Suddenly, he got up and walked out of the room. Marin followed him. "What is it, Master?" "It's nothing. Drunk and the other black midges just came back. I didn't expect them to return that fast." The black midges had been exploring the outer perimeter of the carrion swamp when Zhao told them to return to the castle. Although he expected them to make it back in time, he didn't think it would be so quick. Without any hesitation, he pulled them into the space. However, they hadn't managed to capture any undead spirit beasts, so they weren't able to increase their army.